You're just bought into another dimension. A dimension not only of bad beats and busted draws, but of decisions so bizarre they defy logic. You've crossed into a land where min raises spell doom, and a four-way all-in with queen high makes perfect sense. You've stepped out of reality and into the absurd, the unpredictable, the unexplainable. You've just pulled up a seat to the low-stakes zone.
We're going to pick up the second half of this session where we left off last time. I'm up about $500 and I'm feeling confident. There's no real killers on the table and I think our image is good. In this hand we're in the hijack, and after 3 limps in front of us we look down at queen 9 suited. Raising over 3 limpers is probably a bit ambitious, as folks tend to call raises once they've committed any money to the pot. I swear they'll call raises with a library card and a used napkin. As expected, all the limpers call the raise and we're going to the flop four-handed. Queen 8-3 with a couple of hearts. Just about the best I could have hoped for. Everybody checks to me and I fire out for $40. I want to build a pot when I figure to have the best of it, and with 4 customers, somebody will probably have enough to want to continue. Only Under the Gun calls me, so I have my customer. I've been watching this guy and he's sticky. The turn rolls off the 9 of spades, giving me top 2. Now I think I don't want to hit my heart. It will either kill any chance to get more money out of this guy, or even worse, he could be drawing to a better flush, and that would not be optimal. I bet half pot again for $85 and he calls pretty quickly. No real thought by him of raising, so I feel like I'm ahead going to the river. River is the 7 of clubs. The flush draw bricks out, a few funky straights get there, but I feel this card is pretty safe for me, so I'm going to try to get some value from a queen X or some random 2-pair he got here with. He's sitting on a pretty big stack, so I think 120 won't hurt that bad. I fired it in the middle and he thinks for quite a while now. He finally cuts out the call and tosses in the chips. As the dealer pushes me the pot, he says,
"Boy, why couldn't you just put an order on?"
"Really? What suited hand did he have that paid off the river? Ace 9 of hearts? Ace 7 of hearts?" He's either a bad liar or a bad player. I'll leave it to you guys to decide. 10 minutes later and I'm in the big blind with the queen 7 of clubs. 4 limpers in front of me, so I get to see if I can flop lucky with some garbage. Flop of 8-5-3 with a couple of clubs isn't too bad, all things considered. I could have let out here with my flush draw and overcard, but lots of hands were going to showdown. Several of these guys were running the no bluff defense to perfection. So the strategy is really simple. Make the hand, bet the hand, show them the hand when they call with second pair, repeat as needed. Take Tylenol for headaches, Midol for any cramps. The good-looking end of the table all checks before Sticky Ricky and the hijack tosses in 20. When a calling station starts betting, it's never a bluff, so my fold equity has disappeared faster than a fart in a wind tunnel. The button calls, as do I and the Under the Gun player. 4 ways to a turn queen of diamonds. This gives me showdown value at least, but I'm still not confident I have the best hand. I check, Under the Gun checks, Sticky Ricky checks this time, and now the button fires out for $55. This smells like a slow-played monster. Almost no chance my queen is good right now, but I have outs. Clubs are good, not sure how I'll play the river if another queen rolls off, but we'll worry about that if it happens. Both Sticky Ricky and I call and we're going to the river 3 ways. King of spades is a horrible brick. No way I'm winning if anyone decides to bet. I check, Sticky Ricky checks, and the button snap jams. I wait for the dealer to count it down, not because I'm ever calling here, but I want the amount for the vlog. She announces 191, and that's about 191 more than I was willing to pay, so I return my cards to the dealer. Sticky Ricky folds as well, and we suffer a minor setback. A few orbits later, and I'm in Under the Gun, and I squeeze out the ace-jack of diamonds. I open to my standard 4x sizing of $12, and only Sticky Ricky gives me a call. Jack 7-6 with a couple of hearts. Alright, I made the hand, now let's bet the hand. I see bet for 15 and he quickly calls. Again, the timing tells me he's not sitting on a monster. If he had 2-pair or a set, he would at least think for a beat or two before deciding to only call. I probably could have gone a bit higher in this spot. If he's calling 15, he's calling 25 or 30, especially when he's sitting behind a big stack. Turn brings an overcard with the king of diamonds. That's not too worrisome though. Unless he's in there with some sort of king jack or king high flush draw, I'm still ahead. I like to check to see what he does. If he checks, I'm ahead almost 100% of the time here. But he fires out 20 almost as soon as I check. These are the spots I have trouble with. The part of my poker brain that's been shaped by 20 years of playing low stakes tells me this is almost never a bluff and he's not betting worse than what I have. I'm ahead like maybe 5% of the time. But then the GTO devil pops up on my shoulder and says, "You can't fold, it's too exploitable." so I call with no real plan. River brings the 7 of clubs and I check again. He bets 30, and I call. And it's no surprise when he shows King Jack offsuit for a turn 2 pair. I ran this through GTO Wizard, and I even node locked what I thought his extra wide range could be, and it says this is a check call on the river over 90% of the time. But the solver is also going to have bluffs this guy just doesn't have, like Ace Queen offsuit with the Ace of Hearts and missed Broadway combos with a heart. He's never bluffing the river for this size with this timing. These are the folds I need to continue to find if I want to improve. The very next hand, and I'm now in the big blind with a couple of queens. 4 limpers around to the small blind before he bumps it up to $20. This is the best possible thing to happen. Now I can 3-bet a big number, put the fear of God into the limpers, and probably get a customer while I'm in position from the blinds. I 3-bet to 70 and everything goes according to plan as the riffraff all finds the exit and the small blind comes along for an extra 50. Queen deuce deuce rainbow.
Wow.
I flop a boat and I feel like I'm probably ahead. The small blind checks, and at this point I'm hoping I outflopped aces or kings. Not really going to get any money from anything else. The deuces shouldn't really be too scary to my opponents since I 3-bet pre-flop, but there's really not a lot out there for them to continue with. I continue small for 30. Probably could have even gone smaller trying to get a crying call from 10s or ace king, but surprisingly I do get called. Maybe they've got something after all. Turn is an uneventful 6 of clubs. I size up their stack and see they have about 200 left. I want to make it a reasonable shove on the river, so I go quarter pot this time for 55. It's too much though as the small blind slips the hook. I do take down a nice sized pot for the win though. We're playing 6-hander for this one. I'm in the under the gun low jack spot and look down at king 10 offsuit. Probably a touch on the loose side, but no one has been really 3-betting anything unless they have kings plus, so I know my bet will take control of the pot and I can continue on a lot of flops with the initiative. I get called by Sticky Ricky on the button and the big blind comes along as well. 10-8-4 rainbow is just what the doctor ordered. I can't mess around with this one though, as there's lots of overcards that can put me in a tough spot on the turn in the river. I bet out for 20 and Sticky Ricky calls again. Again, I could have gone more. Sticky Ricky is calling if the number feels comfortable to him. He's down a few hundred from his high point, but he's still got chips to play with, so I need to be charging him when I'm ahead of his wide range. Turn is the 7 of diamonds. The flopped open-ender of 10-9 gets there, as well as the 6-5 gutter. 8-7 also pulls ahead of me. I'm just going to keep betting until he tells me to stop, firing 35 into the pot this time. He thinks for a few beats before calling, but it doesn't really feel like a slow play. More like he's pretty weak but wants to see one more card. River deuce of spades is the brickiest of bricks in all the land. I'm trusting my read and going for some dilly slice thin value here. I try to land on a number that doesn't feel too scary for him, and I pick 45. I push that into the center of the table. It must have been a good bet because he's thinking for quite a while. He hums, he haws, he ponders the price of tea in China and finally throws in the call. I show my 10 and it's good. Another nice 3-street pot comes my way, and this is looking like the session I was chasing the entire time I was in Vegas. Another table broke, so we're playing full again. Middle position opens for 10 and gets called by the cutoff in the small blind before I look down at the Kennedys in the big blind. We're going to get belligerent and bump it up to $55. Middle position and cutoff both call, so we're going to the flop 3 ways. If history has taught us anything, Kennedys always attract bullets. Ace 10-5 rainbow. The guy in middle position is the same guy from episode 18. He's the one that called my pre-flop 3-bet with a 9-7 of hearts, so I know there are a lot of aces that are square in his range. And if he doesn't have one, the cutoff can. So I'm going to shut it down. I'm just trying to get to showdown as quickly and cheaply as possible. I check and it checks around. Jack of clubs on the turn and I check again. Depending on sizing, I might call a bet here. Middle position bets out for $85, and knowing this player as well as I do, this isn't a bluff. Cutoff folds and it's back to me. I hate folding, but it's the best looking of the 3 options, so I just check fold kings. Like a wimp. He later told me he had an ace, and I totally believe him. 2 hands later and I pick up another premium. This time ace queen suited on the button. There's a $6 straddle which gets called by the low jack, hijack, and cutoff before I blast for 40. Only the big blind to my left calls, and we see a flop heads up. Ace 9-7 rainbow and we're in business. The big blind checks in flow and I c-bet for $35. I can keep it low as this smacks my range and there's really not a lot of draws to protect against. The big blind calls and we're off to a board pairing 7 of hearts on the turn. I'm not too worried about this card. I don't expect him to call my flop bet with many 7s. I'm feeling like I have a hammer lock on this hand at this point and I'm trying to get a little trappy. After he checks, I check it back. This way I can get called light on the river when it doesn't look like I have an ace. We both check just as I drew it up, and then one of the few river cards that I hate drops. The 9 of diamonds double pairing the board, and he bets out for 115. Just a puke spot. I know he got there. There are no bluffs, and he's not betting worse for value. But I call anyways, and he shows Jack 9 offsuit. He called Jack 9 off from the blind for 40 cold. Since this happened, I've rewritten my book on this particular opponent. One advantage of the vlog, I can watch the tape back and pick up a lot of stuff I missed on the first time around. I lose a chunk here, but we're still up a bunch. Not all hands have an exciting big showdown, but they still add up. That's the case in this hand. Under the gun straddles for 6 before I look down at a couple of black 10s and the low jack and bump it up to 20. Cutoff, button, big blind, under the gun, and a guy in the parking lot all call. 5 ways to a flop of 6 deuce deuce with a couple of diamonds. If I'm not going to flop a set, this is a good second choice. I'm going to play this hard and fast. I know I'm an underdog against the field, even with an overpair here. Under the gun bets out for 30, which is kind of small considering the size of the pot. I was planning on betting around full pot anyways, just to take it down right here, so I stick with the plan, raising it up to 110. Slowly everyone, including under the gun, toss their cards in the muck, and I add over $100 to my stack with minimal fuss. Very next hand, we get another playable holding. Ace-queen offsuit and under the gun +1, and we open it up to $12. Low jack, button, and big blind come along, so we have another Kentucky heads-up pot. King Jack 7 rainbow is a miss for me. I do have an over and a gutter to Broadway, but against 3 players I have to play this hand straight up, especially out of position. It checks the low jack who leads out for 25. Button gets out of the way, but the big blind calls. I've got an over and a gutter, and I'm getting 4 to 1. What the hell, why not? Turn is the ace of spades. Perfect. Big blind checks, and I check as well. I want to try for a check raise here. The low jack doesn't oblige though, and he checks behind. I'm feeling pretty good about my hand at this point. The river bricks out with the 4 of hearts. Big blind checks again, and I'm going to go for some pure value here. I bet 40. Low jack thinks for a bit before calling. Big blind folds, and low jack shows Jack 7 of diamonds for a flop 2 pair? Didn't see that coming. I know he calls pre-flop raises with suited 1 gappers. Didn't know he was in there with the suited 3 gapper as well.
But you know, I've learned something today.
Just another update to the book on this guy. For this next hand, we have a $100 splash pot. So there's a little bit more in the pot to fight for. There's a $6 under the gun straddle, and the low jack raises to 20. I look down at the 9-7 of clubs. I was just talking shit about playing suited gap nonsense, but this is different. I know what I'm doing. I call, as does the hijack, button, small blind, under the gun straddler. There's over 200 in the pot, and we've got the kind of hand that can be a sneaky nuke if it hooks up. Jack of clubs, 4 of spades, deuce of clubs.
Gentlemen, you have my curiosity. Now you have my attention.
In this moment, I have decided this pot is mine. They just don't know it yet. Small blind and under the gun both check before the low jack bets $35. People just don't understand proper sizing when there's an overlay in the pot. 35 into 200 is about 17% pot size bet. I'm getting direct odds to call just to hit my flush, but that only leaves me one way to win. I want to win this pot without having to hit, so I blast the 12 gauge and fire 160. This quickly removes everyone from the hand, and I add $200 into my stack without having to make my flush. For the last hand of the session, I'm in the small blind. There are 2 limpers ahead of me before I look down at Big Slick and bump it up to 20. The big blind insta-jams for his remaining $92 and it folds back around to me. I'm never folding for this price, so I put in the call and ask if he wants to run it once or twice. He says once, and our fate is sealed. I show my ace-king as I don't normally like to make the all-in guy sweat, and he reveals queen-8 offsuit. Run out comes pure with 7-4 deuce 2 clubs, then a king, and then another king. Another $100 win for the home team. I end up playing for about another hour and lose back about 200, but I book a very solid win of $659 over 7 hours. A good bounce back from Vegas. That's it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a nice bounce back session after the disaster that was Las Vegas. Stay tuned next week because I will have an announcement regarding a little bit of a directional change of the vlog. I don't think the $100 an hour challenge is going to happen, so we're probably just calling that off, but we're going to have a little bit of a shift and adjustment as to what our future goals are for poker and the vlog in general. So thanks for watching, and we will see you next week.